Israel has launched what it calls extensive ground operations in several areas of the Gaza Strip. This follows days of deadly airstrikes on hundreds of targets. Israel's defense forces say ground troops are now operating in northern and southern parts of the territory. Israel says it aims to free the remaining hostages and to eliminate Hamas. Let's bring in DW's Tania Krämer, who joins us now from Jerusalem. Tania, good to see you. What more can you tell us about this latest phase in Israel's ongoing offensive in Gaza?
Well, the military announced this afternoon, basically, that they had launched a new ground, as what they describe, a new ground operation in multiple areas in southern and northern Gaza. Now, the statement itself was a bit vague on the operational details, but the IDF spokesperson from the Israeli Defense Forces explained tonight that basically 5 divisions are now operating in Gaza. He also talked about that they will increase and expand operational control by dividing the strip. They have laid the groundwork for this with those corridors that are running from the east to the west, and also to move the population. And this comes, of course, after a government decision some weeks ago that stated that Israel will invade Gaza in certain areas and will hold territory, occupy a territory, and forcibly displace the population there. Now, the statement also said that in preparation for this, the Air Force carried out strikes on over 670 targets, what they call terrorist targets, over the past week. And this is, what we're hearing from people in Gaza, that there's an intense massive air campaign going on. People have been again displaced, mainly from areas also from the north. I've been talking to people who've been telling me, they left everything to just move back into Gaza City towards the west. And on top of that, they have been telling me there are almost no supplies. One father told me he took a bag of flour because it's became so expensive, and there's no bread at the moment in many areas in Gaza. Also, the clinics, those who are still working, hospitals, are overwhelmed. And also, we're hearing from the civil defense in Gaza saying, that they cannot respond to many calls anymore. And we've been seeing this also on video footage, that many people are trapped under the rubble. People are digging them out with their bare hands.
And meanwhile, Tania, we're hearing that across Israel there have been mass protests demanding a deal with Hamas to get the hostages released. How do Israelis feel about this expanded offensive in Gaza? Is there public support for it?
Well, I think, most of the protests that we are seeing every week, they're very clear in their demand, especially in recent weeks. They say the hostages need to be brought back. And then, the war needs to end for now, and then you can deal with Hamas. And, there has been a shift, I would say, in the mood when you're talking to people here. And also we heard from a lot of people in the security establishment, many reservists or retired security officials who've been questioning the government's strategy of maximum pressure on Hamas. They're saying basically this is rather harming the hostages, and this new offensive could actually harm them, although we heard tonight again from the army spokesperson that they will do everything not to harm the hostages. But there is a sense here that this is not helping the hostages that remain in Gaza, and also that most of the hostages were actually released through negotiations. But so far, the government is not listening to them.
That was DW's Tania Krämer for us in Jerusalem. Tania, thank you so much for your reporting. We can now speak to Fawaz Gerges. He is a professor of Middle Eastern politics and international relations at the London School of Economics. Welcome to DW. So Israel's latest offensive in Gaza is actually taking place just as a new round of ceasefire talks get underway in Doha. And we are hearing that Hamas has said these talks are now without preconditions. What exactly does that mean?
What it means is that Hamas is willing to consider all proposals with an open mind. Hamas is desperate for a ceasefire because Hamas is under tremendous military pressure by Israel, and also Hamas realizes the catastrophic humanitarian situation of the Palestinian people. For the past 9-10 weeks, Israel basically has used starvation and as a weapon of war. No food, no water, no electricity. So Hamas is willing to have a ceasefire, but it wants a comprehensive ceasefire, releasing all Israeli hostages and ending the war in Gaza.
Right. Well, I do want to ask you about what each side wants. Just how far apart are the two sides, and what are the main stumbling blocks?
Oh, Hamas wants the end of the war. It wants a comprehensive settlement, while the Israeli Prime Minister and his coalition, they want all the hostages back, but they want to continue the war. They want Hamas to surrender. They want Hamas to lay down its arms. They want to expel Hamas leaders from Gaza, and they want permanent military occupation of Gaza. So as you could imagine, there's a huge divide between Hamas on the one hand and the Israeli government on the other hand, and that's why the stalemate, and that's why I doubted very much whether there will be a ceasefire. It really will take, it would take a political miracle to bridge the divide between Hamas and Israel.
Well, as everyone is watching this, there are growing international calls for a ceasefire in Gaza. And we should also mention there are massive protests inside Israel itself demanding an end to the war. But is any of this having an impact on the Israeli government?
Not very much. Israel does not really care what all of us say, you and I and Germany and France and the United Kingdom. Israel could do whatever it wants. It cares only about Donald Trump in the White House. Donald Trump is the only leader in the world who could exercise influence over the Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. He could only, Donald Trump, end the war. But of course, so far, Donald Trump has not really exercised any influence over Benjamin Netanyahu. And that's why Benjamin Netanyahu now is launching all out another invasion of Gaza and basically preventing any humanitarian aid to reach 2.3 million Palestinian population in the Strip.
And I do want to ask what kind of impact this growing offensive, this Israeli military offensive in Gaza, is actually going to have on these ceasefire talks. What
Benjamin Netanyahu is trying to do, he's really pursuing two parallel tracks. He is, on the one hand, launching a ground invasion, trying to occupy the Gaza Strip, trying to depopulate Gaza, trying to expel the Palestinian population. That's what Benjamin Netanyahu and his extremist coalition have been saying. I think the talks in the Doha, and forgive me for being cynical, is a way for Benjamin Netanyahu to try basically address the domestic pressure by the families of the hostages and their beloved one. What he is really trying to say is that he's doing his best to bring the hostages home, while at the same time, he's really escalating militarily. Because Hamas has been saying, well, look, Hamas is desperate for a comprehensive deal. It wants to release all Israeli hostages, but it wants to end the war. And we know that Benjamin Netanyahu has made it very clear he will never accept an ending the war in Gaza because he wants a permanent occupation of the Gaza Strip, and he wants freedom of action in Gaza in the same way that he has in the occupied West Bank and East Jerusalem.
That was Fawaz Gerges, a professor of Middle Eastern politics and international relations at the London School of Economics. We appreciate all of your insights. Many thanks for your time.